Right. So good morning and a welcome to CPS HR Consulting's first webinar series of 2024. Today, in honor of the new year, we're diving into New Year resolutions with CPS HR Consultant Kai Stowers, who will be guiding us through this workshop on achieving your new goals today. So just a quick reminder to you all, today's session is being recorded. You will be able to find the recording on the CPS HR website later today. Before we begin, we kindly request that you please remain on mute throughout the presentation unless otherwise directed. Should you have a question during the presentation, you may type it into the chat box and we'll address it at the end of the session if time allows. Now, without further ado, Kai, the virtual floor is yours.
All right, thank you for the introduction. Hi, everyone. My name is Kai Stowers. I am, in addition to a trainer with CPS HR, I'm also a coach and consultant. And so supporting people through their own growth and behavior change is really something I spend a lot of time doing and really enjoy watching. As humans, we are probably one of the most adaptable species on Earth. And when we are trying to implement a new behavior, sometimes we feel like we're not as adaptable as maybe we have the full potential to be. And so by learning a little bit more about how our brains work and coming up with some more concrete strategies, we can really start to move the needle on our behavior. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. So we are going to embark on a journey today through behavior change, through our resolution revolution. In the chat, I'd love to hear how many people already have a resolution. Maybe you can just type out what that resolution is. So if you've already shown up and you have a resolution, let us know. And if you don't have one yet, that's fine. We will have time to come up with one. So what sorts of resolutions do people have in mind already? Anyone? Oh, it's a quiet crowd today. Oh, here we go. Here we go. I see it now. All right, being more active, getting alcohol-free days in, steps to a lot of health commitments and goals, self-care, great. Yeah, being more proactive, being active, some financial goals about spending less. Yeah, simplifying everything. I suspect many of us have lots of things going on in our life, so streamlining, simplifying can be really helpful. Boundaries, yeah, that's a great one. Moving away from media and back into reading. Health broadly, health, well-being and health, finances and relationships. All right, oh yeah, working on student debt. Mindfulness and journaling. Yeah, mindfulness is one of my favorite things to practice and talk about, so love having that in the room. All right. Let's see, and then CPS HR, we have a wide range of training courses that are available for you. And let's move into what we'll be talking about today. So we'll start with a little bit of intro and welcome. You've already started sharing with each other, just the kind of the range of goals and resolutions that we have in this space together today. I'll talk a little bit about how we form habits, and then we'll spend the bulk of our time on charting our own course, and then we'll close out and review learnings, and thank you all for your attendance. So ground rules for today, invite all of you to be present. So if you're able to minimize other screens, do what you need to do so you can pay attention. There will be a breakout room later on in the session. And so for that, I invite everyone to both take space and make space. Some folks are really great about getting their voice in the room. And of course, we want to hear your perspective. And other folks need just a little bit more time and room in order to get their voices. And so by balancing that, everyone can be heard. Invite everyone to both expect and respect differences. We are coming from many different parts of certainly California, possibly the country, possibly even the world, with many different experiences. And so we can get curious about what others are bringing in service of learning from each other. And lastly, take care of yourself. If you need to take a quick break or whatever you need to do to be present, please do that. All right. And so for our check-in question, I'd love to hear just in a word or two, who are you at your best? And for some people, this is going to be about like their mood or their energy. I'm calm or I'm energetic. For other people, it'll be about how they feel. For some people, maybe it's about what they're able to do or achieve. So if you think about who you are at your best, got at peace, patient, caretaking, focused, centered, engaging, relaxed, present, peaceful, calm, and a good listener. Yeah. Upbeat, energetic, productive. Lots of people who are energized when they're at their best. Patience, that's a good one. Compassionate. Great. Thank you, everyone. Conscientious, kind. Yeah. All right. All right, so let's move into what a habit is. So for a lot of the goals we want to achieve, it means doing something over time. And a habit is just the usual way we behave. And one of the hallmarks of habits are that they're really unconscious. So I think about one habit I have is when I drive. I've done this so many times that I don't have to think about how do I unlock the car? How do I turn on the car? How do I put it in the right gear? Like through practice over years and years and years, these are really unconscious behaviors. So that's what a habit is, right? And there's a difference between a habit and routine. So routine is the things we do. And if we do a routine over enough times, it will become unconscious. But at first, that routine is really conscious. It's a series of steps. If we could go back to the car example, when I was first learning to drive, okay, how do I unlock this car? How do I turn the car on? Back then, it was a key in the ignition. Now it's a button for a lot of newer cars. You know, what gear? I had a stick shift back in the day. Now it's an automatic. But I really had to practice consciously for a while until all of that became automatic. And this actually happens in different parts of the brain. So a habit happens in the deeper, more primitive parts of our brain. And I mean, even the primitive parts of our brains are pretty impressive. Like they keep us alive, they keep our heart beating. Like all of the movements that we do unconsciously happen in those parts of the brain. And a routine is something that happens in the more conscious part of our brain. That's part of the brain that was the last to evolve. And it feels more effortful, right? We need a little bit of willpower to make it happen. We have to like think through it. And so one thing that can happen when people like set these resolutions, they're really thinking about that end goal when it's just a routine and it's easy. And when they start doing it, it feels effortful. They have to plan. They need a little bit of willpower. And sometimes what can happen is we're like, wow, if it's always going to be like this, forget this habit. I'm just going to give up, right? And that's when we break our resolutions. And some of us make it through January. Some of us break it that first week, right? But if we know ahead of time that, oh, it's going to take, some time of building a routine before that begins to feel like a habit, that can help us stick with it. And another metaphor I really liked, and I believe this was from the book Atomic Habits. I'll have a reference section at the end so you can see where I got some of this information from, is the example of if you wanted to melt an ice cube. Say you took it out of the freezer, but your room was 28 degrees. The first thing you would want to do is turn up the temperature in the room. And so you're sitting there and the temperature it's warming up. We go from 28 to 29, we get to 30, we get to 31, and you're like, man, I've been heating this room forever and nothing is happening. This ice is not melting. But if you wait from 30 to 31 to 32, which is the melting point or the freezing point, or both rather, of water, once you get to 32, all of a sudden you start seeing results. All of a sudden you start seeing melting. And so sometimes when we're building a habit or a routine, when we're moving towards a goal, there's work that we have to do ahead of time And it might not look like we're making progress, but those are necessary steps in order to get us to our goal. So if you're getting frustrated and saying, I'm not seeing any results, sometimes stepping back and asking yourself is, well, if my melting point is at 32 and I'm still at 30, maybe that's okay. Maybe I can see how I'm still making progress towards my goal. So that's just a little bit about how our mind works with setting goals, building habits, and moving towards them. The other thing that can be helpful for us to remember is when we have, and I was looking at, these resolutions, when they're, I mean, they're like big and broad, and that can be really exciting and motivating, but that doesn't necessarily help us in figuring out what steps to take first. And so this will be the next section of our talk today. So the journey to a new routine, we can really break that down into different steps, into different, smaller, more doable steps. And the first one I like to start with is, what is my North Star? What do I care about? What are my values? Because if I say, I want to be more generous, but maybe that's, that sounds good on paper. But when I start looking at my values, sure, I'd like to be more generous, but I also need to pay my bills, right? There might be another value or need that's more important, more competing. And so if we can think about what's really most important to us right now, that can set us up for success. And we'll go through an exercise to think about our values. The next one is, what are the strengths we have that can support us in our goal? If my goal is, I need to be able to pay my bills, like, do I have some strengths that I can leverage? Maybe I've got a side hustle. Maybe, I'm good at budgeting. But what are the different strengths that we can use to support those goals? And then what is the greatest need? When I, think of, why might I want to budget? Is it so I can put myself or a loved one through school? Is it so that I can go on a vacation? Is it so I can, support family or community in some way? It's like, what does that need? And then what are the obstacles in the way, right? What are the things that I might personally encounter that lead me to spend more money than I want to? There's inflation, the cost of goods have come up. Maybe I just want to go out and spend time with friends and they have really expensive hobbies. And for any goal, we could have different obstacles depending on our unique circumstances. And with that in plan, we'll start to build our action plan. All right, so I'm going to invite everybody here to think about your North Star, to think about your values. And this is a partial list of values. You might have values that aren't on this list, but I'll invite each person to pick one or two values that are really important to them. And as you find a value, go ahead and enter that into the chat. And I'll give you an example. For me, my health is really important. I have an invisible disability. And so if I get enough sleep, if I exercise, if I do other things to take care of myself, I feel pretty good. And if I don't, I get some pretty quick feedback that my health is really important and I should take better care of it. All right. So yeah, faith, family, learning, stability, health. I know I'm missing some. Growth, balance. Yeah, integrity, great. Someone found one that wasn't on there. There might be others. Responsibility. Optimism, meaningful work, love, humor, self-reliance, security, balance. Yeah. All right. And so as we go on, so I'll invite you to keep that in mind. This is a really important value for you. It's something that gives meaning. Our values give us meaning. They can help motivate us when the going gets tough. All right. All right. And now I'll invite people to think about what your greatest strength is. Like, what are the cards that you hold that can really support you when you're taking on a new challenge or creating a new resolution or goal? For me, resilience is a big one. I know that if I hit a roadblock or if there's a failure or a letdown, I can gather myself up. That might take a minute, might take 2 minutes. Sometimes it takes longer depending on how big that setback was. But I know that eventually I'm going to be able to gather myself back, learn something, and then continue moving forward. So what are some of the strengths that each of you bring? Yeah. Faith and plan. People might have a strength of maybe it's family or community, or other people might be like, well, actually, I'm really independent and that's my strength. Being an action taker, determination, strategic thinking, compassion, tenacity. That's a good one. Diligent, willingness to learn. Faith and a forward thinker. Resilience, optimism, letting go of fear. Right? And figuring out a way forward. Great. All right. So we've got a value or maybe 2 values. We've got a strength or 2. And the next question is, what is your greatest need? So if you think about where you need to be in 30 days, what your goal is, what would that be? And some examples, we had a lot of people who were coming here with kind of broad resolutions around health, right? There might be other things that we need, like finding a new job, maybe settling our chaotic mind or taking care of our mental health. Maybe family or community is a goal, or there's financial goals that we might need to hit too. So what is your greatest need that you would want to hit in the next 30 days? Got one for chanting regularly. Sustainable routine for overall wellness. Great. What are other goals? I know one of my unconscious habits after a long day is I move to the couch and I open up the internet, and suddenly lots of time has gone by. And so, one of my goals is how do I time box that? So some time on the internet is fine, but there's other things that I would like to prioritize. So that is another example of scheduling that doctor's appointment. Got more meditation, focus, pausing and thinking before taking an action. Yeah, there can be a lot of power in that one, especially if we are someone who has learned the hard way what happens when we do not pause and think. Yeah, increasing physical activity, being more organized, productive. Yeah. And I've seen consistent come up a couple of times for folks. Like, okay, I've got this, but it's not quite consistent yet. All right. Oh, yeah. Streamlining, less physical possessions. Yeah. Established a sleep routine. Yeah. Americans are certainly, we tend to be very sleep deprived. And that sleep is such a foundation for everything else in our lives. All right. All right. So when you think of that goal, there are many things that could get in the way, but for this exercise today, we're going to just pick one obstacle to focus on. And we're going to reflect on why this obstacle exists and what habit or routine supports that obstacle. And I mentioned one obstacle for me is, once I get on the couch with the internet, it is very hard for me to get up again. And one obstacle is it actually kind of feels good to zone out. And when I think of what I might need to break that obstacle, I'm like, maybe I need something else that is a little bit more compelling. And so one thing I've started doing is on Tuesdays, I go and play badminton with friends because it is physically impossible to be both on the couch and playing badminton at the same time. That involves less willpower because I'm like, I really look forward to seeing my friends and playing badminton. So what are some of the obstacles, or what is one obstacle for each of you? One is overwhelm. Like, where do I even start? How do I break down this really big problem into a manageable step? Yeah, and like tracking expense. Oh, yeah, time, lack of energy, competing priorities. Yeah. Yeah, our minds can tell us all kinds of stories about, we're going to fail, or what are the consequences of failure. And sometimes those stories can get really big and keep us from doing the things we want to. Um, Work, yeah, on that. And that, we get those dopamine hits from like crossing things off of our lists. And sometimes we can sacrifice our bigger goals for those more immediate, concrete steps that we can take in the moment. All right. Yeah, lack of motivation and energy. Sometimes we're really drained, and it can take energy to establish that new routine. And start like, and if we're feeling drained, if we don't have a lot of motivation, sometimes just taking the smallest steps will move us a lot further than trying to take a big step. So maybe it's just like once a week for 5 minutes, I will. And that's how we can start building that new routine. Yeah. All right. Okay. So let's move. So now we're going to move into the brainstorm, and this will be, we'll send people into breakout rooms. I'm going to give you a worksheet that you can take with you into the breakout room. So that should be coming up in the chat in a second. So you can download that. And what we'll do in the breakout room, so we've gone through and everyone's had a chance to reflect on your values, your strengths, your greatest need, and an obstacle that's in your way. And there's room in the worksheet, you can fill that out. And then the next step is to start to identify that one habit or routine. And there's 3 options with that. Maybe it's a habit you need to break because it's not aligning with your values. Maybe it's a habit that you already have and you want to do it or keep doing it. And maybe it's a new habit that you want to learn and practice. And so the breakout rooms will be 3 people each, and you'll have a chance to have a conversation for 15 minutes. And this is reflection on, what, and sometimes when we're in conversation with each other, a couple of things can happen. One can be like, oh, I thought I was the only one who struggled with XYZ. And that can really help kind of put some ground beneath our feet, especially for someone who's feeling overwhelmed or don't know where to start, or we have a judging mind. Sometimes what happens is people have really different perspectives, and we're like, oh, I had never thought of it that way. Or that's really interesting. Someone has a really different value, and this is how they move through the world. So this conversation is really just meant to support each other as we talk through our next steps. All right, welcome back, everyone. Welcome back. So what was your experience in the breakout room? And feel free to put it in chat, or if anyone would like to come off mute and share, that's welcome too. Too short. So at least one group it sounds like they had a good conversation. Fun, it was great. Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing how fast 15 minutes can go by. Positive, finding others who are also focused on mental wellness. Yeah. What did folks learn about themselves? Oh, Suzanne got clarity around goals and next steps. Seeing the same struggles, getting good ideas, knowing others have the same struggles. Yes, we are. It's so easy. It's so easy for us to think that we're the only one, or one saying I love is that we sometimes judge our insides against other people's outsides. And when we have a chance to come together and have a conversation like that, we can see, oh, yeah, like other people really are, struggling with some of the same things I am. Selena, I need to get out more. Sharing of information, perspectives. Yeah, that we can be our biggest motivator or obstacle, right? And getting great ideas and suggestions. What else? What else did folks learn about themselves? Any other insights from the breakout rooms? Yeah, everyone's fighting a different battle, and we don't always know what's going on in anyone else's lives. Everyone faces challenges, yeah. Other learnings about others? All right. What were a few people mentioned that they got some good ideas and information and perspectives. So what are some of the new things you're going to try based on the conversation that you had in the breakout room? Share that wisdom with the entire group. There's a solution to everything. Yeah, breaking things into steps, that can go such a long way. Smaller, more manageable bits. Dedicating a set amount of time daily for things that are important to you. Yeah, and one of the things I think of is we love someone who's like, here's this big audacious goal, like, and to pick one, I'm going to save the world, or I'm going to completely like redo my life. We like love those like big transformation stories. And what that kind of papers over is that even in a really big audacious goal or challenge, we start by taking little steps. And so everyone who came in, when the people who shared, a lot of the goals you had at the beginning, like, it's like about health and financial wellness. These are like big goals. And there are little steps we can take to get us there. And that's less likely to lead us into overwhelm. It's less likely for us to be like, oh, well, we think of that ice cube metaphor. We may have gotten from 28 degrees up to 31. And if we haven't seen progress, we can be like, oh, it's just time to give up. But if we're focused on just keeping on taking those little steps, over time, we're going to get there. All right. Yeah, using what motivates us to do the things you're not so excited about. Right. If you think a lot about caretaking, like a lot of caretaking is kind of boring, a lot of drudge work. But if we really care about our family or our elders or whoever it is in our life that we're caring about, that can really motivate us to get through the less than exciting parts. Yeah, starting with that small step. I'm pretty athletic, and over the years, I've had injuries or have been too busy to work out. And my goal when I go back to the gym is sometimes not even 15 minutes. If it's been a long time since I've worked out, sometimes it's like, I'm going to survive 10 minutes on this exercise machine and I'm going to call that a win. Right. And over time, then you can build on it. There's a new tool someone's using to keep them consistent. Tips with apps that you haven't used before to stay organized. Let's see, scrolling. Oh yeah, creating a checklist so you can manage action items. Yeah, and yeah, we get that dopamine hit when we check off those little items, and we can use that in service of our bigger goals. Like, okay, what are the little things that I can do? Yeah. All right. Yeah, and I think, the comment section already had it, but this is a quote I loved when I was researching habit formation. And the difference between doing nothing at all And so doing something for 10 minutes a few times a week is absolute. So giving yourself lots of permission that starting small is still starting, that consistency over time is better than like one like monster session of something. One of my pandemic hobbies is learning to play cello, and it is an extraordinarily difficult instrument. And my teachers over the years have all reminded me that it's better to practice for 15 minutes a day than to do like an hour practice once a week. And so sometimes I'll be like, especially if I'm learning something new that's hard, I'll be like kind of down when I come to practice. And they're like, yeah, it's fine if you just practice this one skill that you're having trouble with. Just practice it for 5 minutes. Like, don't do so much that you get overwhelmed and frustrated. Just do enough that you're getting the consistent practice. And when I look back over time, I can see how much I've improved. But at any one moment in the time, I can tell you, it doesn't feel like I'm making any progress on that at all. And we can give ourselves grace, especially if we've got these big goals, that there's a lot of repetition that we need. Give ourselves grace that we're building that muscle. We're building that muscle memory over time. And there's other goals that we're going to be able to see more visible progress on. All right. All right, so here are some of the resources that I use to put together this talk. You're welcome to take a screenshot of this if you're somebody who likes reading. The HBR article is short articles, and for people who have more time and want to delve into a book, these are 3 that are pretty helpful. One thing I didn't talk about, and this is one I learned from The Power of Habit, an organization I worked for years ago, did a book summary presentation of this. And the habit I was trying to work on at the time, and I was having a lot of trouble with, is, so I have cats, lovely creatures, and one of them, if the litter box wasn't cleaned daily, he would find another place to go. And so I had the habit, but it just wasn't consistent. And I was trying to think about, how can I make this habit more consistent? And one of the things I looked at was obstacles. Like, what is the thing that's preventing me from doing this habit? And I realized that even if I washed my hands right after, I was worried that they weren't clean enough. And so that was my obstacle. And The Power of Habit mentioned one of the great ways to build a habit is, if you already have an existing habit that you're doing, piggyback the new habit onto it. And so I already took a shower every day. And my obstacle was, I was worried that my hands weren't clean enough. And so I could kind of solve for both of those problems. I was like, oh, well, I will just clean the litter box right before I take the shower, because that's the cue. It's going to remind me I'm taking a shower. It's time to clean the litter box. And my hands were going to be very clean after a shower. So that is one suggestion I've had a lot of luck with. Some of you might also have success with it. All right, and that is the end of the slideshow. So I'm going to stop the share now and just invite, do folks have any last words or reflections